Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee and Codeless with me, Gary Hoberman. I've got my coffee here and I've got my guest, so I think I'm good to go. I should actually say, and honestly, it's tea, Ryan, just because a little bit under the weather. It's snowing in here. For those who can see behind me, like in New York City and in New York, it's coming down pretty hard, and a nice glass of tea goes well with that right about now. So today I've got Ryan Lemoie on. So Ryan is CEO and co-founder of Auxo, but so Ryan's story is kind of interesting. I'm going to give it to you from my perspective. I did this with Don recently as well, Don Callan, which was from my perspective. Ryan was a superstar employee inside of this amazing company called Unqork. And I got the call that everyone really doesn't dreads, let's say, Ryan, which is Ryan wants to leave. And I'm like, well, have him call me. And I remember being in an airport in a terminal, and I'm trying to remember even the gate of where I was. And the reality was, when I got on the phone with Ryan, he goes, "Look, I want to leave Unqork because I believe so much in Unqork that I want to create a dedicated SI company to doing what I love, which is Unqork." And that was so. I'm going to stop there. So Ryan, before Unqork, let's back up a little bit and we'll do the wavy line. So KPMG is, I believe, how you met our founding team members at the point when we were pretty small. When did you first join Unqork? What year?
It was the fall of 2019.
Okay. And so pre-COVID, everything pre-COVID seems a little far back. So fall, and you were with us for like over 3.5 years then.
Yep.
And what was your role inside of Unqork? Just tell me a little bit of where you started and
Yeah. So I,
what you
I,
did while here.
I
Yeah.
think I joined when y'all were around 75 employees, joined as a solution architect, small, tight team, saw the company grow to, I think it was just over 500. And really, I was just a member of the professional services team, worked on a lot of complex clients. Frankly, climbed the ladder on that team as a leader in implementing all things on Cork.
And when you so number 75 or so, that is early on. It's funny. I remember when we crossed that 50 mark was when we said we actually have to step back and define our culture and values because we're now hiring people that we don't know. But you were a known entity, right? So you were in KPMG before that. What did you do at KPMG?
Yeah, so I joined KPMG right out of undergrad, and I joined a group that was actually led by one of the leaders that's now at Uncork. We were doing technology implementation really across the street in New York at bulge bracket banks. So actually, I wrote a lot of VBA, learned a whole bunch of different technologies, and got introduced to Uncork by some of the early team members that had actually migrated over from KPMG.
So a background before that, technology business.
It's
What was your
funny, yeah. So I studied finance in undergrad and I did a minor in computer science. And I didn't love computer science out of the gate. My mom made me stick with it, and it was like the best gift that she ever gave to me. And then when I got out of school, I fell in love with writing code when there was, a purpose behind it and finding the right technology to solve a solution. So technical background, but like really had the opportunity to expand on that and flourish while I was out on Cork, working with your clients.
That's awesome. So, when you think about like, let's go back now. So you called me. Do you remember that conversation? I'm
I
trying to
remember
like
exactly where I was. I was
so
driving to
describe it to everyone. So go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I was driving to a Chipotle. I remember exactly where I was, and you're like, Garrett, text from you, hey, give me a call. I'm like, oh man, boss man's calling me. So I called you up, and I,
And by the way, wait, we got to stop there. If anyone gets a text or an email from me asking you to buy gift cards, which is an entire thing that always happens. Like, I mean, like, just the answer is that's not me. Just So this one was actually me, though. Yes.
yeah, that's when you know that you've got a material sized company when you get a gift card text. So I was driving to Chipotle. You're like, give me a call. Called you up, and before that conversation, I had worked on the team helping to scope out a lot of the implementation deals at Uncork. And I felt like there was an opportunity for a boutique and a niche firm to exist in the ecosystem to focus exclusively on Uncork. And that's kind of where the pitch came from. And long story short, thanks for the endorsement at the time. And that's how we got started, was during that phone call.
That's awesome. And now tell me first off. So you leave. Large company KPMG to join small company Unqork. Unqork grows. You leave Unqork to create new company Auxo. Now, what is Auxo? What was your goals? What was your thought process like when the vision of Auxo itself? Let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, so the goal's clear now looking back, but at the time it was not as clear. I think the guiding principle was let's create a firm that is hyper focused on being great at building applications on Unqork. Like that was our initial kind of ethos and guiding principle. I was fortunate enough to recruit and work with Mike Dreesen, our co-founder, who was also an ex Unqork employee. And when we got started, like I'd be lying if I told you I thought we'd be the size that we're at and accomplish what we have in the last 16 months. I figured, we'd be a small boutique firm. Maybe we could take on a project at a time. It did not cross my mind that we would grow into the size that we have already. And I even have we didn't end up raising any capital, but I have the investor deck to prove that I thought we'd be like, this 10 or 15 person company after a year.
That's okay. So let's go through it. How many employees was it about a year ago? A little over a year ago
Yes,
that
we
this.
opened payroll about 15 months ago.
Okay, and it was how many of you at that point?
It was just Mike. It was actually like Mike. Mike needed insurance. Luckily, my wife has a job. I was on her benefits, so I could be a little more risky. And initially, we just set up as like, Mike, what do you need? Let's set this up as a co-founder. So we opened payroll with one employee. When we closed our fiscal year in 2022, we had two full-time employees, and we just went through and did that this past December, and I think we're at about 68 FTEs. So
Yeah, and growing significantly from there, as we know. So, and just look from my perspective, like what we built at Unqork is a technology that's never been done before, right? So we're changing the way and defining codeless. A lot of the partners out there view client engagements as assigned bodies, get paid hourly, and don't care about outcome. Right?
yeah,
And that's like, by the way, like that isn't an Unqork thing. That's like my view as a CIO when I was at MetLife. It was my view as an MD at Citi. Like it was like, how do you find partners? And this is not a broad stroke against partners. Many of them are the exact opposite of that. I've had the major partners in my office going, we're bleeding money to get this done for you on time, and we're doing it. We got it, and they did. But like the view of like partners should be for a customer, we pick the right solution, we help you with it, and we make sure it succeeds, and we celebrate success with you.
yep,
So, like when you created, Oxo, and you said Unqork is the technology. So we've got the technology, we know how to use it, we all understand it. Um, Mike, also a former Unqork employee, of course, and we've got the technology, we've got the team. What was the metrics you saw for success? How do you feel about a customer in your mind, and what success look like to you?
yeah. So there's the success metrics for a professional services business, which are super vanilla. Like it's we're not reinventing the wheel with our business model. So I'll leave those out. But the success metric for us is the client satisfied, and I know that that is not the most quantitative metric, but for anyone that's been in a implementation or a delivery role, it's pretty darn apparent whether you're doing that or not based on your day-to-day interaction with the client. So the guiding principle from the beginning was let's make sure that clients are super happy not only with the platform but with the implementation service and the hand holding and that they're getting with Auxo. So for us, it's client sentiment for us, and I think that parallels really closely with sentiment for the platform itself as well. So are people happy?
Are people happy? So how are you doing with that today? How many out of 10 customers, let's just pick 10 customers you have randomly, how
Yeah.
many of them would you say are actually happy with not just your service with Unqork? Like, because in essence, it reflects on us.
Yeah, so we're well over 90%, which is a number that we're very proud of. This is, it's codeless application development, but it still is enterprise software delivery, right? We're not writing code, but it's still a challenging business. There's still unknowns when you go into a delivery. There's still hurdles. There's still aggressive timelines. So I think we've built a pretty fantastic business with over 90% satisfaction to date.
And just to kind of put that in context, I remember being at Citi as earliest days as a project lead and senior manager, and I remember we were tracking stats on success, and we were at like 67, 70%. And I remember the global CEO coming up and going, if overall the organization's at 70% success, you're about 5 times better than any other organization out there, which I don't believe. So kind of you're all BS was
Yep.
kind of the message, which was actually true. So when I created Unqork, I remember the stat I kind of went through, and it was in our pitch deck when it was the earliest days of Unqork. The pitch deck would say out of, you know, large enterprise digital transformations, which is what you do, like the success rate is about 93% failure. So 7% is the success rate that customers typically see. And 17% of engagements almost bankrupt the company. They go so bad. So I'm just going to put that in context for the audience that's listening. Like 93% of projects fail to deliver any value they set out to is in the enterprise today. With Unqork and Auxo, we're seeing 90% success rate. So the exact, I mean, it is night and day, and it's and one of Ryan's biggest customers recently agreed to do a webinar with us and showcase to the world their solution, which to us, there's nothing better than a client that's not just happy, but proud of a digital transformation. I mean, this is a major transformation displacing one of the largest CRM platforms out there. And it's huge. So exciting stuff. So I got to say thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Oxo team, that I'm sure is watching you do this. Like, you've found a secret sauce to say here's how you deliver, but I think it's about, like, what I would say is there's a culture built up of we win with the customer. Like, if you want a customer to be happy, it's not about throwing a body at a problem and billing an hour. Like, that's the
Correct.
difference.
Correct. And we've seen that. We were just looking back, kind of doing a year in review. We haven't had a client churn. So everyone from the day we started, we still are working with every single client that we've ever worked with, which is fantastic.
That is an amazing, and think about the market for those who are in the startup world, actually for those in the software world or even in the enterprise software world inside of a company, like, to say that in the last 2 years is kind of incredible. Like, that's an incredible achievement. What is, like, from a business point of view, what's the most challenging technical achievement you've seen? I'm just curious, without naming clients, like, what would you say was like, we didn't think that was possible, but we got it done?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll pick one, and I'm sure there's others that that will come to mind. But we're building out an application which is not entirely in Unqork's wheelhouse, where for the most part Unqork has traditionally served the enterprise. We're actually building out a B2B SaaS application that will um, be used by HR departments in large organizations. And what we solve for is we've actually rolled out really robust multi-tenancy in Unqork. So it's a solution. Actually, another ex Unqork employee is kind of the mastermind behind that. But that just unlocks so much potential for the different types of applications that you can build on Unqork today. So definitely proud of that one.
That's awesome. So for those who don't know, like on Cork, we did purposely designed to be single
Yeah.
tenant for a customer, so no one's there top to bottom. It's you, it's your encryption keys. But here's a customer that their single tenant instance they designed to be multi-tenant with Ryan's help, so they could support multiple businesses and customers and B2B, which is a great story. That's awesome. So what else is going on inside of Oxo? Like, what's your goals this year? What does it look like? What's your hiring goals? What do you think? What type of talent, if those who are watching,
Yeah.
would you say attracts that you'd love to see apply and join your team?
Yeah.
What's the
So
profile?
we just did our OKRs for the year, and there's one kind of guiding principle that we have at the top level, and that's continue to be what I would consider us to be the top of the market quality provider for Unqork implementation. So that's kind of the high level goal, and really where we're focused in terms of building the team out. We're at about 115 team members today, predominantly in the US. We have a great partnership with a firm based out of Eastern Europe and Serbia. We just had a cohort of 5 start down in Costa Rica this past Monday. So we're starting to expand globally to better support our clients. On the hiring side and the types of talent and team members, uh, we're starting to mature the kind of engagement management, engagement director type function that we have at the organization. For a while, we had predominantly architects that would also kind of manage client relationships. And as we scale, that's just another part of the business that we're going to have to build out so that there's a little bit more of a separation of division of labor in terms of how we're providing services for our clients. So that's the focus here in the near term. I'd be lying if I told you, hey, this is like the exact headcount that we want to be at. I think we have, a material portion of like the overall TAM for Unqork implementation services, and the goal is to continue to capture as much of that market share as possible, and hope that we're also aligned with you and the Unqork team on that vision.
You are definitely aligned there, and we love having Ryan and Auxo team as part of this open market we've kind of created, where you should have the ability to say, I'm going to pick the partner who not only does it best but cares about it, like actually cares about success. And I think that's like, as a CIO, I would always call my business partner and say, how do we do? Just forget about the metrics, the on time and budget. Did it deliver value? How do we do? That's a core competency that most people don't even think about. Like that's something which you need. So you need that partner that does it. Absolutely. Um, Also, like let's talk about like accelerators. So
Yeah.
um, there's this notion in software of products, and a product to me is kind of like a it's a purchase, it's a build. A
Yep.
product could be a, ERP solution or CRM or ITSM, or it's a product. It does a specific purpose. It lets me customize the product within boundaries and settings, and then inevitably a product never fits what I need. So,
Yes.
I picture duct tape. Whenever I picture ERP and CRM and ITSM and all those all I picture is duct tape, because the reality is it doesn't look what I want. So I'm going to change it to make it look like it. I'm going to bastardize it. I'm going to customize it. It's going to be tons of custom code at the end, and it's not going to work. And um, that's a product to me means that you feel special. Like you're like everyone thinks they're unique and special. So products don't fit my need because I'm special. You call it an accelerator, which we call it like a Lego kit. It's a starting kit or an
Yep.
accelerator. Describe that. Give us an example of some of the accelerators and what that
Yeah.
means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, one of the core accelerators that we offer was born out of the first client that we ever started to work with. I guess it was about 15 months ago. So a client came to us and they said, hey, we're an organization of 3 people today. We think we're going to be at 100, and we need a case management solution. So kind of think throughput, workflow, collecting information, passing amongst team members. And they challenged us by saying, um, we want you to build what will be kind of V1 of this case management workflow, but we don't want to have to call you and spend $50,000 every time we add a new role or a new step in the workflow, or a new data point to collect. So we said, okay, challenge accepted. And at that point, we had set out to build what we call our case management accelerator. So we built it out for that client. It was successful. They've processed tens and thousands of cases. And from there, we've been able to take some of the core architecture that we built in-house at Auxo and really apply that for any use case that requires case management on Unqork. So think it's an engine, it's an accelerator. For the technical folks, it's a state machine, but it can be applied to any use case. So when we actually work with a client, one of the first things we do is we say, because everybody asks, like, what can you bring to the table? We actually take our asset and we will drop that directly into a client's environment just for working with us. And that's our Lego kit that we start to build with.
So case management, like when you think of case management, there are tools that are called case management tools that, again, I'm going to describe what I described before. You customize, you bastardize, you duct tape, and it doesn't look anything like it at the end. In your view of a case management accelerator, it's a starting point that lets you define an overall grouping of tasks called the case. Within each task, it's who owns it, who assigns it, what's the completion status, what data do you collect. It's a framework, right? That's kind of what you would describe.
Correct. And it comes with the core features and functionalities you would expect, right? So things like notifications. Like when I move forward in a workflow, do I want to send a text message or an email or get an in-app notification? It'll have SLAs and reminders. Hey, this has been sitting in your queue for a few days. Administrative dashboards and operations dashboards to see all your cases. So all that comes out of the box. And then there's the final, let's call it 10% of, hey, by the way, I have this custom CRM that I need you to integrate with. Great. We'll take the accelerator, we'll drop it in, and then we'll get, to the goal line by doing some implementation to get that final 10% over the line.
That's awesome. That's completely get that. And so Ryan, I get asked a lot for advice of those in the corporate world who are thinking about creating a startup and
Yeah.
leaping out of that. Like, give me the biggest difference in your mind. So someone asks you, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. What was it like, that journey?
Yeah.
And what have you learned?" So I like the way you described it. It sounds like you're still learning. You're continuing to learn. You're still evolving. You haven't yet figured like give us that perspective. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I'd say two things equally important. One is take action. Like it would have been so easy to sit and debate whether or not we wanted to start Auxo for years, right? And I think getting started and not overthinking how do you get to MVP or step one, like don't overthink it. Like just try. Throw things at the wall, see if they stick. I think a lot of people get stuck in this analysis paralysis stage before they launch something. When in reality, you could probably get something out there if you just took the time and effort you were going to spend to analyze on actually building something. So be a doer, go out and do something is the first piece. And then on the other, in terms of leadership, building a team and an organization, is just be yourself. Like don't let the fact that now you have directs and you have a growing organization change the way that you approach things day to day. That's something that we try to instill at Auxo is, you're here for a reason. You wouldn't have got through the hiring process if not. So like, we want you to be true to yourself. We want you to bring kind of your whole self to work. So take action and be yourself.
That's awesome. And Ryan, like you wake up in the morning excited for the day ahead?
Pumped. But I would say it was no different than when I worked at Unqork. Like,
Good answer. I like that answer. That's great.
so your team had done there was work being done for, I think you had been elected as like a top 100 place to work. You're high up in the rankings and they were interviewing employees at the time. And someone on the HR team came and was like, what is it like working at Unqork? And I still remember my answer was like, this doesn't feel like work to me at all. Like this is a sweet playground of cool technologies that we get to use and build cutting edge things every day. So like, yeah, I wake up pumped every day to do this, but I would say no different in terms of the enthusiasm than when I was out on Cork.
I love the answer. And okay, so wake up pumped every day, just like on Cork. How many times a day does something happen that hits you over the head that you didn't expect when you woke up pumped in that morning?
That's a loaded question for anyone that's in entrepreneurship. Honestly, we have a really good leadership team. We've been fortunate to even hire some ex-leaders that were in your organization. So the whole getting thumped on the head, as anyone will when you're building a company, I think the thumps are maybe a little more spread out, and I hope that our team has helmets on. So I can say it sounds crazy, but things are like pretty smooth sailing, thanks to the partnership with Unqork and having great people that are able to deliver for our clients. So I think
I love it.
still round up here, not too many thumps.
Yeah, you have a lot more hair than I do. I am jealous on that. I gotta tell you, like I don't know what that secret is, but I'll ask you more on that topic. I always describe like I am pumped every morning I wake up for what's ahead, but then you are hit on the head multiple times during the day by things you don't expect when you woke up, but then you continue to basically be pumped the next morning, which is very different from a corporation where it's kind of like this slow, windy road where things go well, they don't go well, they're like, and it's like weeks apart. And
Yeah.
you're miserable every morning, by the way. So a little difference there. So that is interesting to see the alignment, and I like that. What are some other advice you would give anyone thinking of doing entrepreneurship and building their own business? And By the way, we would love like Unqork, of course, SIs out there. That's something which we are thrilled by with both Auxo and Aiden, two different companies here that we have as partners that are amazing. So like I gotta say, like I'll do the shout out. Like we love the entrepreneurship vision of excellence. So what other advice? Give me books, movies. What are the things that
Yeah.
like keep you going? Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so I've never done the math on it, but so I have a very big dog sleeping at my feet right now, and he requires a lot of walking. So for about an hour and a half every day, I listen to podcasts on entrepreneurship and business. I've been doing this really since I had my first job in undergraduate school. So you take an hour or two a day for the last dozen years. That adds up. So that's my source of inspiration, guidance, and advice in addition to a personal
Podcasts.
reflection.
Okay. I like it. So that's by the way, in the comments, anyone wants to share their favorite podcast, definitely throw it out there. That's a good one to basically say what is the best podcast. And yeah, no, that's awesome. That is definitely any books, anything else besides podcasts. And I guess the walk with your dog is probably a huge thing. It's clear your mind, get that going, get active. My
Yeah.
Peloton behind me is my sanity in the morning. That is, I
Okay.
won't do a single business meeting until at least some cardio, some exercise to get my brain flowing. But you
So
have to do it.
I gotta flip the question back to you. Run super successful SaaS organization, classify it however you want. Like, what would your guidance and advice be to folks wanting to jump into entrepreneurship, especially having come from a long career in the enterprise?
Yeah, it's interesting. To me, life's short, and like, why? I think it's what you had said before, but why wait? What's the point of waiting? What's the point of procrastinating? Um, like when I created Uncork, everyone was like, "You're too old." I was 44. Like it was like at the time, like you're too old. You should have had three startups by now. And the real data would show, I think late 40s, early 50s is
Yeah.
the most successful companies created. So to me, it's I think you're going to get hit in the head. You're going to have everyone tell you no, and as long as you believe in yourself enough to keep going. So the real question is, do you believe in the mission and the idea enough to travel through every single obstacle that's about to be put in front of you and blast through it? And I like the way you said blast through it with being pumped in the morning to go. Um, I'm looking at some comments, by the way. So Professor G Markets, Scott Galloway's, like, so by the way, I was an NYU Stern alum, so I do follow Scott Galloway. He's got a very interesting take on the world, as everyone knows. Maybe we could get on that one day. That would be a fun one. Ryan, we'll make a little contest there, and we'll
I
say
love
how quickly could we get on that, or Joe Rogan or something like that. We were joking before the show. It was like we'll have to figure it out. But Ryan, this was awesome. I know we're coming right up to the time we basically say goodbye in the show and continue. And I just want to thank you for not just joining us today and sharing your story, but also being an amazing partner for Uncork. So 9 out of 10, 90% success rate with customers, and not a single customer of yours has yet turned is incredible, just to think about the views. And like that's a stat that I am sure every single of the largest SIs with hundreds of thousands of employees would kill for from that point of view. And there would only be one left if that was the case, by the way. So I love the view. I love the story. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the continued partnership for the whole OXO team here. Thank you, everyone.
Likewise.
Thanks for
Thanks,
joining us.
Gary. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.